In this video, we're going to be taking a look at our split-tail minnows. Now, we make these in 3 different sizes. Top one here is a 2 1/4 inch. And we have a 1 1/2 inch. We have our little micro minnow here. This one is a 1 inch split-tail minnow. And we make these in a lot of different color combinations. A lot of the color combinations are two-toned as well. Some of the real small ones, like the 1 and 1 1/2 inch, we can't do all of our color combinations just because you lose a lot of that detail and contrast. But you can see even on a small micro bait, this one's two-toned. You get a lot of little kind of variations and some translucence even on such a small little micro bait. That's what makes our baits a lot different than a lot of the other ones out there, is our attention to detail on a lot of these smaller ones. Now I'll show you a few different ways you can rig and fish these guys. One of my favorite ways to actually fish it is just with a micro jig head. Now this is a 2 1/4 split-tail minnow. You'll want to use a size 6 or a size 4 jig head with this guy. You could probably even go bigger if you wanted to, but a size 6 or size 4 is what I like to use. And I like to use these without a bobber or a weight, just like this. And what I do is I like to sight fish these in small ponds and small creeks. Really effective for larger panfish, small creek bass, even crappie will eat them like this on the move. And you can do that also with the 1 1/2 inch and even the 1 inch. So the 1 1/2 inch, you're going to use about a size 8 jig head. You can maybe go up to a size 6 if you wanted to, but this one here is a size 8. Fits this little bait pretty good. And then the 1 inch, you're definitely going to want to go smaller. You want to go down to a size 10 little jig head. And believe it or not, fish will go after these little micro baits when they're keyed in on small minnows and fry. So very effective when the fish get selective. And they're so small that even a panfish, a little bluegill, will have no problem getting a hold of even this little micro bait. Big ones definitely gobble them up. And there's a few other ways I like to fish them. So your traditional kind of crappie style slip bobber rig. So I like to use another little jig head there. And I rig it with an inline slip float here and with a bead and a stopper. This is really good for fishing deep. So anything deeper than 2.5, 3 feet, I like this slip bobber rig. That way my rig, as I'm casting it out there in the lake, doesn't tumble and get tangled, because what will happen is the slip bobber will slip all the way down to the jig head when I go to make my cast. And then once that jig head hits the water, it'll sink and go to the desired depth. Now, if you don't want to use a slip bobber rig, if you're going to be fishing shallow, let's say you're trying to hang it over weed beds that are only a couple feet deep or so, you can just take a little float like this. It has a little slit on the edge. It already has some line in it. And there's a lot of these style floats, and you can just take the line and you slip it down there into that slit and pull it behind the little rubber stopper. Now this is my favorite way to hang these little split-tail minnows above weed beds. And all you have to do is just cast it out there, let the minnow sink. I let it sit for just a few seconds or half a minute or so, and twitch it. I give it slow little twitches back, and basically you're raising the minnow up, and then it'll fall back down, then you're raising the minnow up. And if the fish are real aggressive, you can twitch it back to you faster, but generally slow is better most of the time, especially for the larger, smarter fish. So all you really want to do is add some movement, let the little tail there, you can see it do its magic just by pulling this float back a few inches, raising that minnow up, and then letting it sink back down. Then another good way to fish this is on Dropshot. So this is kind of the hot way to catch bigger, pickier fish. I like to use a short shank hook for this. This one's an owner mosquito. And on your larger baits here, your 2 1/4, you're going to want to use a size 4, a size 6 hook for that. And then when you go down to your 1.5, kind of like your jig heads, you're going to want to use about a size 8. And then when you go down to the 1 inch, you're definitely going to want a smaller hook, like a size 10. So, and you can rig these multiple different ways. You can drop your drop shot a lot farther away. I did it pretty short here just so you can see on video kind of what a shorter drop shot rig would look like. A lot of times when we're fishing to suspended fish, especially crappie, they're not always right on the bottom. They're sometimes suspended, so you're going to want to make this deeper. You can go a couple feet away from your bait or more. You use a drop shot knot. That way your bait stays perpendicular to the line. We do have another video on that on our channel, so you can find that down in the description. I'll put a link to it on how to tie a drop shot knot on these little micro baits that keeps your bait perfectly horizontal. Now you can see I threaded my bait onto the hook. For this one, you don't necessarily have to do it that way. It works pretty good on these smaller baits. I'll kind of show you why. Because this one's a bigger bait here. This is a 2 1/4. So this one you could get away with just basically nose hooking it like that. Basically where the point of the hook is coming out right on the nose of the bait. Other guys will rig it just on the tip of the nose like that. And on this larger bait, this 2 1/4, that's just fine. What will happen is on these smaller baits, if you start to nose hook with this guy, let me see if I can do this while dodging the camera here. That bait, I mean, it looks pretty good there. That'll actually stay on pretty good. When you use a thinner, smaller hook, sometimes what will happen is that bait will rotate around just because they're just so small. There's not a lot of kind of mass or a lot of something for this hook to grip onto the plastic. So what you'll notice is after you catch a fish or two, you cast it quite a bit, this guy will start to rotate a little bit more. So on these micro baits, I do like to thread it onto the hook. This one's too big. You'd have to go get a little size 10 mosquito hook or so. But I do like to thread them onto the hook so that they sit basically perfect on the hook when you're casting it and after you're fishing it. But like I said, on these bigger ones, nose hooking is just fine and gets the job done just fine. But it's really just personal preference. You can catch fish a lot of different ways on this drop shot, but really effective for smarter fish when they get tough and they get picky. That is our split-tail minnow. You can find them on our website. Lots and lots of different color combinations. We even offer some custom combinations in this one too that are short run, so we'll make a special batch of some unique colors that we'll never make again. It's kind of like one of those one-off custom things. You can find those as well on our website, moondogbaitco.com.